Hey everybody, welcome back to I Know a Guy. I'm Anthony, and this is the podcast where connections thrive. Each episode, we spotlight inspiring entrepreneurs, professionals, and individuals doing amazing things. Together, we'll grow your circle, spark collaborations, and discover new opportunities. Today, we're meeting Vernon Brown, known on stage as the Energizer Connection Speaker. Vernon uses his intuitive gift of empathy, charismatic personality, and his knowledge from his studies in psychology to set past emotions aside and leave audience members at the edge of their seats as they wait to implement their life-changing lessons. From cover model to personal trainer and to CEO, Vernon is driven to use his intuition to find a customized regimen, that works for his clients and expand the nation. How you doing today, Vernon?
I'm doing great, Anthony. What about yourself?
If I could read, I'd be better. But it's one of those days. I got the cold medication running through the brain, so words look like other words. So what can I do? So awesome. Well, I was excited to have you on. You're doing a lot of cool things. Everything I read and looked up about you, I was like, yeah, I definitely want to know this guy better, and I know a lot of people out there would like to do the same. So starting off, where are you located?
So I am in the oddly snowy right now, Orange Beach, Alabama.
Alabama and snow, it's like the apocalypse right now, I imagine. Once a flake comes down, I know, like we were talking offline, I have family down there, and when it starts to come their way, they start calling me like, "What have you done to us?"
Yeah.
So it's just mayhem, I imagine.
Yeah, it's a little bit. I mean, but it's nice. It's different. We moved down here to avoid it, but guess what? We got
Yeah,
it.
yeah, it's gonna fall. Yeah, but how long have you been down there? You said you moved there.
Yeah, me and my son, we've been here, going into our fourth year.
Awesome, awesome. Well, what are you liking about it? If somebody's coming down to visit that I've never been there, where are you taking them? What are you showing them, and where are you taking them to eat?
Oh my gosh. So I think one of the coolest things is obviously the beaches. Now I know most people might say like, what the heck is so special about Orange Beach? The beaches here are absolutely amazing. I grew up in Richmond, Virginia, and we had Virginia Beach, it's a cool beach, right? I mean, it's water, sand, hotels, all that good jazz. Until we came here, I didn't realize what beaches are like. So it's just sugar sand, beautiful sights, tropical environment. It's like being in another, I don't know, like an island truly. But all right, so where would we eat? That's a tough one. You know what? I am such a big fan of sushi. There's a place in Pensacola called, oh my God, I cannot think of this place. I cannot think of what it's called. It's a great spot that's about 30 minutes from here. Love their sushi. Very fresh, legit.
Yeah, no, never been a huge fan of sushi. That might just be because I live in the Midwest and it travels, right? So it might be different if I was somewhere a little bit closer to the source. But awesome. Well, what can you tell us about what you're doing?
All right, so, when I'm, not enjoying the beaches, I'm a happiness coach. Now, I know some people say, like, what the heck is a happiness coach? And just save everyone a Google search because you probably won't find out by my definition anyway. But to save you a Google search, I'm the guy who's not an archaeologist. I'm an architect. I take people from stuck to happy as beep, not gonna cuss. But that's about the fastest way to sum it up. And I have been doing that for what? Going into my 12th, 13th year now.
Okay, so you're probably getting pretty good at it about now, over a decade of experience, right?
I'm having some fun. Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, so happiness coach, kind of, how did that happen? Like, is that something that in high school you're like, you know what, I'm going to be a happiness coach, or is it something you had to I bet it's something you kind of found along the way, but what's that story look like?
I love the thing that you said, high school. High school was when I was the exact opposite of happy. I think it's a good place to kind of jump in. Around those first Genesis time of my life, I was, 16, 17, 18. I didn't fit in. I was a guy that just got made fun of. It was just kind of like the exact opposite of what I'm have right now. Um, I was awkward. I was clumsy. I was the guy. I was told I was the stupid one. I was told that the acting. I was told by professionals I never make it. Like literally everything that you've seen in a movie that you're like, holy crap, man, this guy's not gonna make it. I even believed it. But oddly enough, how life plays out is, I hung in there, right? I got some really good people in my life because we're not here by ourselves. And I think that's one of the things I picked up along the way. And you talked about kind of stumbling into it. And along my way of stumbling my way to success, how some people might identify success and what I identify success as is, kind of finding your path and purpose and building on that, kind of merging those two. I recognize that it's not about how you start; it's truly how you finish. There's some factors you can't control in life. I couldn't control how I look. I couldn't control, some of the things and decisions that I had to deal with because, maybe my mom and dad would have could have made or might have made some better decisions, but they didn't. But it's all about what you do with it. I was about 20 years old and I decided that I got to do something better. And that do something better, kind of came at almost at the cost of me kind of sitting here talking with you because I wanted to do something better. I didn't know what to do. I felt stuck. Fortunately, I met a really cool guy who said, like, you're not where you are based on how you started, but you're not there anymore, Vernon. And it hit me. And so from there, I just started challenging every single thing that I was told or thought that I couldn't do, right? Like challenge a story. I thought I was told I was a stupid one. So I was like, I got to put myself in college. And so it's like I didn't want to, pay for college. I wanted to put not get loans. I wanted to put myself through college. So that's what I did. And then I wanted to challenge. I kind of thought that I was, the quiet, shy one. So I became a bartender. Because everybody has to talk to the bartender. I figured if I was going to be on one end of the spectrum, a guy nobody wanted to talk to, I wanted to be on the other end of the spectrum where everybody wanted to talk to him. And I challenged that. I was told I was going to be the ugly one, the stupid one, the fat one. So I just challenged that too. Um, so I went after modeling and I went after it, not in this place that I wanted to prove something to myself, but I wanted to prove to other people, which, right, wrong, or indifferent, that's what the driving force was. But I wanted to challenge every story. And as I'm out there challenging those stories, it's like, okay, I'm like, what's next? What's next? What's next? And I realized that as many challenges as I was going after and many things that I thought that like I wanted, I wasn't happy. I just wasn't. I was just going after these things and I started like sitting back and I realized like the happiest I'd been is when I was out there, talking with people. Even though I was quiet when I was quiet because I was always paying attention to people, right? I was quiet because at that time I didn't realize that, I had like this intuitive ability that many people have. But I didn't really need to say a lot to people because I'm paying attention to people. I'm watching things. And I realized like, hey, how do I kind of merge this, let's be better and do better, combined with like this intuition thing. And I got with a coach who said, Vernon, you ever thought about being a life coach? At the time I was 30. And I said, there's no way possible I'm going to be a life coach. It just sounds silly to me. And it's like, at the time it's funny, but when I even hear that, people are like, you're a life coach. Like, no, I'm not. I don't know everything about life. I don't. I'm just, kind of, blessed as many of us are with the kind of gift of long suffering, the gift of paying attention to people, the gift of just being present. But he said, you've been doing this all your life. And I said, what are you talking about? So being that he was a smart guy, I love him today. And so we still talk. And he's a smart guy who stayed on me. I looked into it and I said, well, okay. And just like everything else, I saw it as a challenge. And when I first started coaching, as what 12 years ago, 13 years ago now, it was a struggle, but I started realizing I had a lot of fun doing it. And here we are. What you're happy.
That's awesome. I really like that because you found your unique ability and you were able to find different ways of using it that, coaching isn't something new, but your take to it is. Your niche in it, because like you said, if you were to Google happiness coach, what are you gonna find? You might find you, but much else.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. You kind of found your niche. You worked it into what your strengths were that you honed over years, not knowing you were honing them because you were
Right,
just
right.
dealing with your circumstances, and out the other end, here you are today. So that's awesome. I really enjoy stories like that because it's awesome to see that people that are in that early part maybe they can look at it and be like, okay, I don't need to be discouraged. Literally everybody goes through something. Some are worse than
Exactly.
others. I get it. But don't let it crush you, right? You can learn from it. You can grow from it. Some things suck and they're going to suck and things are going to continue to suck in some areas, but
Right,
um,
right.
that's just part of it. So that's awesome. So what would you say right now is your favorite thing about what you're doing?
I think it's I can answer that in like a couple of ways. I think the first way I want to say is how many people don't realize that they're not happy. And I think when the light bulb goes off, it's not that, oh my God, that makes me happy, but they realize like, holy crap, I can do something about this. There's nothing wrong with me. I think that is hands down number one thing that comes to mind when you said that. So many people feel I've noticed, and this isn't me going off my belief, just the things I've heard over the years. It's been what uh, a few thousand people I've coached over the years, and it's people just realize like there's nothing wrong with me. I can relate to that even just like with my story because it's like you think there's something wrong. Why is this? Why is that? Why is this? Why is that? And it's like there's nothing wrong. Seeing that light bulb goes off makes me, it's like getting that hope battery recharged every time. I feel like that's what it's like, even when I'm talking to audience or with people, individually. And I think the second part about it is, and some people might like, hold the pitchforks here, but it's people. I know there's a common adage you hear people saying people suck, but it's people. There's something, yeah, without getting into my whole belief, about it, we're not here by ourselves, right? People say you both go by yourself, you come by yourself, and things like that. But it's something about being with people that I love, and it really lights me up. So it's seeing people wake up to realize that there's nothing wrong with them, but being with the people, those two sandwich, those are the top two things I love. Top one thing that's kind of parallel to one another.
Yeah, that's an awesome realization that a lot of people it can kind of sound cliche. How's the saying go? Except for by the grace of God, there go I.
Yeah.
Realizing that, if I was in your shoes, I would probably do absolutely nothing different. I might actually even be worse at it. So realizing everybody has their struggles and, wanting to help them get to their happy, that's awesome. That's noble. Really, really, really like that. What are some mistakes or some advice that you would give to aspiring entrepreneurs? Because you've been doing this over a decade. You've obviously
Uh-huh.
had some hard-won lessons, or I've worked with people dealing with some hard-won lessons that you would advise somebody starting their entrepreneur career or, considering finding something to do that you might give them a heads up about.
Expect to suck. Expect to fail. Expect to feel as if, why did I even do this? Expect it. And I know it's not a typical message, especially from the happiness guy, but I'm also the real guy, right? Because I think that's what blindsides a lot of people. I've worked with entrepreneurs. It's been what? Well, it's got to be at least 6,000 people by now. I've worked with and coached, and they get blindsided by the fact that they don't realize that this is going to be a fight. This is going to be a gym session. When you go to the gym, you love the look. But at the time when you're under that bar, you don't love how it feels, right? You don't. And it's part of the process. This is part of your journey. And I think if there's one thing that I definitely have to tell people is, and this isn't the part that's like the dismal to bring you down, but it's a part to celebrate. Like, it's okay. I'm telling you, it's okay, because the only way you're going to get stronger is you have to fail. You have got to have some things come about, because the only way you're going to recognize if you really want this is you got to go through some things. I didn't get that at the beginning. And so I think, and I've worked with so many people now at this point, it's not that I say that to people to say like, oh my gosh, this is abysmal, don't do this. But it's like, dude, you're about to get the biggest level up in your entire life. But the only way you got to do that is you got to get under that bar and sweat some. So I think if there's anything I'm telling people is expect to suck. And then you are going to spring forward so fast in life, it's going to be amazing. You won't even realize how strong your resolve will become. Most things won't even bother you, that most stresses most people out.
That's fantastic advice, and a lot of people need to realize it's gonna suck regardless, right? Right.
Yeah.
If you're staying where you are, there's gonna be things that suck. If you're going and you're doing something else, it's gonna suck. You get to choose
Yeah.
your suck, it turns out. Because if you don't go to the gym, if you don't work out, your day to day is gonna suck. You're not gonna feel as well. You're gonna be unhealthy. If you do go to the gym, it's gonna suck because it kind of sucks to work out, right? You're putting yourself in uncomfortable situations, but the rest of the day you feel better. So you've kind of condensed it. And so, yeah, so condense the suck, whatever it is, realize that you're doing it because this is what you want to do. And it's kind of funny, having interviews with just a bunch of different people, how it always tends to line up. There's a through line between a couple episodes where it's like I'm talking to so and so, so and so, and so and so, and a lot of the things keep coming up. And this is kind of one of them where it's like things are going to be rough. People will go, I'm going to
Hmm.
be an entrepreneur because I want to work half days. It's like, okay, which 12 hours do you want to work, right? So
Right.
realizing it's going to be tough is super, super important. So that's great advice. If you were, had to make like an avatar, an average client, or somebody's going through X, Y, Z, you're the person that they should talk to. What do those pain points look like?
35 years, 35 plus years old. I think there's something special that happens in our mid 30s. We start recognizing like you had, at some point, to some degree, enough experience where mom, dad, family aren't going to help you, and you start realizing like I'm doing this. I got to figure out my meals for the next 7 days for the rest of my life. It's that big realization. I say that kind of in a funny way because it is a realization. Like, whoa. I think something else is my people tend to have children. They tend to have some sort of responsibility. Maybe it's one, maybe it's two, but they tend to have a responsibility. Well, obviously, here is maybe you are an entrepreneur. You've thought about being an entrepreneur, and it's one of those things where maybe you are an entrepreneur, but you haven't 100% committed. And when I say committed, it's the honest question that are you really putting everything that you have into this to see this work? I think that's a big pain point there, and it is because it could be something that, well, I want to do this full time, but I still have my job. You're kind of working a corporate job thing, not knocking that whatsoever, but it is something that tends to show up. Or you're an entrepreneur who's noticed that they've been seeing a lot of the same problems come up, and it's been more than 2 to 3 to 4 times. And when you're honest with yourself, and these are okay. That's just a sign that you need to go down a different street. You made a wrong turn someplace. But those are the kind of those big signs that really show up. And I think, lastly, actually, the big one here is this low energy, lack of concentration, lack of focus, lack of awareness. When you start noticing that it takes you an hour to do things that normally takes you 15 minutes, or you start noticing things that, typically don't frustrate you are now frustrating you, it kind of even causing your personality to shift a little bit. Um, that low energy is 100% clear sign that we need to talk.
Okay. How about power partners? Who are other industries or other professionals that you synergize really well with, whether it be, you know, able to refer back and forth or have collaborative, experiences with?
I think recruiters are always a good fit for me. Just because it's what tends to happen to some of my people. As I mentioned, they're in that I'm kind of doing this job. Sometimes my people find out, like, maybe it's not, I don't want to do entrepreneurship, I want to do something else. I'm like, what's that something else? Like, oh, I thought about this. Boom. It just makes sense. And these things it helps everyone out. The recruiters goes off, my clients are happier, and everyone in that company has a new person. So recruiters work very well. Um, I think that is probably one of our stronger partners that comes to mind immediately.
Okay. Yeah, awesome. Yeah, there's definitely some synergies there because you're clear with what you're doing. You're right. You're handling this bit of the pie, and people need a lot of guidance in different areas. But being able to say, you're going to be happier after talking to me," that's a definite value add that people can synergize well with, I imagine. Um, what are the top strategies for finding happiness, success in both your personal and professional life?
Number one comes to mind with like a lightning bolt. As soon as you said that, you need to know what your personal brand of happiness is. And when I say that, I mean you really need to know what your brand of happiness is. Not the Jeep that your neighbor has that you bought because you thought it was cool. I'm talking about if you love traveling and going to the spice aisle inside the grocery stores, I'm telling you myself, and you enjoy that, if that's your personal brand of happiness, you need to know what that is. Number one thing you can do. I can't stress to you how many times I will walk into a room, I will step out on stage, 200, 220 people, 5,000 people, and I'll say, hey, who here knows what makes them happy? And then everyone raises their hand. And I want to help some people out really quick with this. Everyone raises their hand and say, I know what makes me happy. And for anyone listening, please listen up. If you know what makes you happy, stop the car, be smart, raise your hand mentally, and keep your hand raised as I add to this and kind of qualify it. If you know what it makes you happy, make sure that it doesn't involve buying or spending. Capital One doesn't make anybody happy. It cannot involve food, alcohol, or drugs. Got to be honest with you. Send in, text after you drink a glass of Cabernet can get you into trouble. And the big one is it can only involve yourself. No one else. I love my son more than anything on this earth, but my happiness cannot involve him. It's got to make sure that it doesn't involve those three things. And I just want people to kind of put their hands down. If you know it's like, hey, it doesn't involve that, you need to know what your happy is. And that is so important. And once you do, it's not that it automatically you can clap your hands. Yes, oh my God, I figured out the key to life. No, but it's where you need to start digging and looking. Once life shows up, and life's for all of us. I don't care what color you are, I don't care how tall you are, I don't care where you live geographically, life shows up for all of us. And you need to go after it. You need to figure that out because once life's your fun, the first thing to go in everyone's life. And I've done this. I don't care how many CEOs, how many Fortune 100 people I've talked to and deal with. The first thing that goes is your thing that you're doing for fun but it's the first thing that needs to stay. And if you don't know what it is, you're going to have that excuse to say, I don't know what it is. Sorry to be long-winded on that, but that's kind of the first one. The second thing is, no one is in charge of your happiness, but you need to question your environment that you are working on being happier in. Your environment is a huge, huge factor. And there is no man or woman that I've ever met in this universe, in this life, who's stronger than his or her environment. I can promise you that. If all of a sudden you're surrounded by people who think you should not be running marathons, who think you should not be exercising, I can promise you that that is an uphill effing battle. You will not want to exercise. You will not want to run marathons. Conversely, you put you in a room where people are like, hey, let's do this. Let's stay active. Let's go run marathons. This is my life. Let's do this and it's more supportive. You're going to go out there and run 2 marathons, 20 marathons. Your environment matters. And if you can't control your environment, you need to watch what you're putting in your environment. Listening to amazing podcasts like this, watching this, things like this, they inspire you to educate you. You got to feed that environment. And I think the third thing is definitely your relationship that you have with yourself. Not to the relationship that you have with social media where you're smiling, but you really need to have a relationship with yourself. How are you talking to yourself? Who do you become when life shows up? Because if you're not happy with that response, we got to tweak those things, because as you're working on finding your happiness, you want to work on also being happy with who you are. So those are the big 3. Sorry to be long-winded.
No, that's fantastic advice. I'm glad you went into detail because a lot of us could benefit from that. Like I said, if you ask that, like you mentioned, if you ask that group of 5,000, everybody's going to put their hand up, but
Mm-hmm.
they're missing the mark because defining happiness is just like defining success, right? What does success mean for your business? Do you have to be a billionaire, or do you just have to make enough that maybe your wife can retire,
Correct.
or raise your kid? So defining that, because if you're going to get a map somewhere, you need to know where you're going. So it's
Correct.
super important to have that in black and white. So that's awesome. I really really like that.
Thanks, man.
How can focusing on happiness improve productivity and your overall well-being?
Energy, 100%. Happiness for me, by my definition, what you're happy is not, you're walking around with a smile. That's not what you're happy is about. It is not saying like, oh man, I can't wait to smile all day today. No, you know what I mean? That's going to give you a wrinkle, if anything, if you're worried about those kind of things. But it's happiness, it's energy. That's what it's about, by my definition. So when you have more energy, you're going to do more. When you have more energy, you're going to take more risk. When you have more energy, the gap between thinking and doing is this big. You just do it. Like, oh man, why didn't I do this earlier? Oh my God, I got more energy. You're going to be more productive when you feel more energetic. Case closed. And that's it. Because when I'm sitting there talking with people and they'll come on and get on calls, or I'll be in audience and like, oh my gosh, I got this going, this going, this going. Again, I'm not saying I'm a miracle worker. I'm not. But what people get caught up in is their thinking. You're like, well, I haven't been doing this for, a few weeks. I'm making fun of people. I'm just kind of saying, like, I hear these things a lot, and I'm just kind of giving it this tone. And it's not a happy tone, right? You're not doing things. You're going to talk like this, right? You're not be excited. But when you talk with people and they're saying like, well, what have you tried? Well, oh, this, and it's questions, right? You hit the right question, boom, you find the energy. And you find out how people's thinking's kind of got them trapped. But once all of a sudden you're like, oh man, I never thought of that. You hear their voice change, like, oh, male or no matter who you are, their voice get tired. They start carrying themselves better, shoulders roll back, and they want to go out there and tackle the world. When you are focused on your happy, when you're focused on what makes you light up, it's going to light up everything that you touch in life.
Absolutely. No, I really enjoyed that as well. I'm gonna have to go back and listen to it again, probably take a note or two. So that's awesome. What are some common habits that people have that are holding them back from achieving their happiest and most successful selves?
Thinking that some of those emotions that they're feeling are not part of the journey, and thinking that something's wrong with them. I think one of the things that I've encountered this, especially towards like the later end of 2024, going into 2025, um, maybe somebody identified as a fear or hesitation when they're about to do something or get to a really cool place in their life. Like, I never thought I'd make this much money. Just one of the things that, a lot of my clients say, like, how do we do this? Can't believe it happened, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, and they're like, oh, they think this, oh my God, this is wrong. Like, no, this is new. These are new experiences, these are new emotions. And I think some of the times people get kind of, not want to say afraid of the feelings, but aren't prepared for some of those emotions that come along with the journey. Um, which goes to kind of the second point about your environment. You need to make sure you have great people in your corner who are willing to be there to say, like, to talk you through those things, right? Because I don't care how wealthy you want to be or how rich you espouse your, espouse yourself to be. Nobody wants to be on a yacht by themselves, right? And we all want to be with good people, but you also need to make sure you have good people to say before you be like, oh my gosh. And some people might say the term, I'm not a big fan of this terms like this, self-sabotage. You could get on the phone with a friend and be like, "Oh my God, Anthony, what's going on? Oh my God, man, I blew up. I got all these hits, I got all these downloads. I don't know what's going on. I think I did something wrong. Can I do it again?" And people, these are real things that happen. Your friend be like, "Well, what did you expect?" "Well, I thought I was going to blow up." "Well, are you blowing up?" "Well, yeah." "Okay, so when did this just happen too soon?" "Oh yeah, I guess you're right." And now all of a sudden, before you go out and self-sabotage, your friends kind of talk you off the mountain, so to speak, right? But it's about you want to make sure that you got good counsel in your corner, good people that can even call you out on it in a positive way to say, "Hey man, you're not sounding like yourself right now." Like, "Oh gosh, you're right." Or even so you just say like, "Dude, like, hey, let's let's have fun. Let's be safe though," right? You need that. Um, and I think the third thing that people kind of get stuck at is not realizing that they can't be happier. I think sometimes people got to kind of get this a kind of happiness set point. This is probably the happiest I'm going to be when I was 16 or when I was 20 years old and I had these things going, and they kind of reflect back on that moment, and you don't realize you can still have those moments. You can still go to create that. And I think and life does some things to people. I don't care who you are, life to people. But I think thinking that the happiest moment then is the happiest moment that you can be.
Definitely a lot of truth there too. Because you'll find yourself reminiscing and like, well, I remember when, and it's like, okay, great. You'll probably never be a college football star again or whatever that is. Right?
Right,
You're
right,
past
whatever
that.
it is, right.
But there's other things that are just as rewarding, if not more so. Um, and you're not going after them. Why? You know? So absolutely, that's fantastic advice. I know we've covered a lot, and I know we could probably dig into each one of these things, for a while. But is there anything overall that I missed or failed to ask that you really wanted to add?
I think if there's one thing I want to add for anybody listening, and I think a big takeaway that I would like for people to have from this, not because I think what I say is powerful. What I am saying with this statement is we I know there's lots of people having different circumstances in life, some good, some great, some unexpected. But we must work hard to not become our struggle. And your struggle can be many things. Sometimes we can identify with what we're dealing with and almost feel as though it's us, or can get the sense that it's us. Um, and one of the things I've really been encountering the last, couple years definitely is relating to your pain or problem or struggle as if it's you and it's not you. It's not who you are. It's what you're managing, but it's not who you are. I think there's one thing I definitely want to bring that up.
Okay. Awesome. So for people that want to be happier or have questions about how they can be happier, just want to think about it in a different way. Because that's what a lot of this has been for me is, I hadn't considered any of that. Or maybe they just want to talk about Deadpool. I don't know.
Yeah. I'm a nerd too.
Yeah, I like people that are authentic enough to have their passions and their hobbies and stuff around them. So I just had to mention it. But for those folks, how can they find you and how can they get a hold of you?
Yeah, so the fastest way to get a hold of me is gonna be on my website. It's what'syourhappy.com, and it's you spell happy HAPPI, not with a Y. What'syourhappy.com. We got a really fly newsletter, a mail I send out. I do not spam. I send actual information out or different happenings that week to give you different tips on my newsletter. You can also email me as well at Vernon at what'syourhappy.com is another way to get a hold of me. But those are the two fastest ways. I'm also on YouTube as well, What's Your Happy, and also on LinkedIn. And since TikTok got saved, also on TikTok as well, where I give daily tips.
Awesome. Yeah, and I'll put all that in the show notes so, easy to find. So awesome. Great. Well, I really appreciate that. If anybody would like to get a hold of Verdon, absolutely do. you're gonna be happier at the end of it than you are going in for sure. So if being happier sounds like a good idea, have that conversation. You're gonna learn more about it. If you'd like to get a hold of me, you can find me at ikag.me. You can find more episodes, subscribe to our newsletter, connect with awesome people like Vernon in our growing community. If you or somebody you know would like to be interviewed, also you can apply on the website there. But Vernon, I really appreciate you taking the time. I really enjoyed this conversation. May need to talk soon about Deadpool, just a
Oh,
heads
please,
up.
I am
But
down.
but let's all go out there. Let's have an awesome day and grow our circles. All right.
All right, take care.